in 10 years from now, everyone who starts earning money could have like a dedicated small family office that is very particular to that individual, know everything they should do about their investments, and it's completely run by agents. I read this quote that says, software is very different from any other industry in the world because software is infinitely malleable. And I think that's a trap for fintechs because they just want to start adding more features. So it's like very easy to start stacking features and lose sense of what actually matters to the customer. And for us, I think we have very clear, like if you want to be a good investment advisor, the core product is the advice.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of AI Without Borders. I'm thrilled to have Bruno Koba, founder of Astor, a startup reinventing the investment advisory experience. They're part of the YC 2025 batch, but most importantly for this podcast, Bruno is originally from Brazil. Bruno, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Very excited to join.
To start, you have an exciting announcement. Do you want to share it with the audience?
Yeah, so we're announcing today that we raised a $5 million seed round led by Monash with participation from Y Combinator, Goodwater, Gilgamesh, and some other great investors. We're very excited that this round will bring in fresh resources for us to allocating engineering, product, and growth as we build our thesis to reinvent investment advisory in the American market.
That's amazing and congratulations. I'm thankfully as a small angel investor in the company, so super excited about it. But for people that are not familiar, can you share more of what Astor does?
Yeah, so Astor is an AI investment advisor for individual investors in the US. So, there's a multi-billion dollar industry around financial advisory in every single market in the world. In most countries, this industry is marked by human and financial advisors that usually charge hefty fees for their services. Usually they operate on a percentage of AUM capacity. So if you have like $1 million to allocate with them, maybe they charge 1% of that a year. You end up paying $10,000 a year to have a financial advisor on your side. And we think that service should be democratized. We think, every investor in the world should have someone taking good care of their money. And we think AI is finally the unlock that we needed to bring scalability to this previously unscalable service. So we're starting with the US market, which is the largest retail investor market in the world. And we launched a few weeks ago an AI investment advisor product. Right now it's on the App Store, so you can feel free to download and try. But essentially, we want to provide a service that can be faster, better, and cheaper than what a regular investment advisor would offer.
And one of the key things in wealth management is that it's very personal. So what's a good recommendation to you might not be a good recommendation to me. How do you ensure that you capture the user preference correctly when making those recommendations?
Yeah, this is at the very core that we do. So, when you download our app, one of the first onboarding steps is to connect your accounts, right? So we use Plaid, which is industry standard. You can safely connect any account that you have from any bank or brokerage institution, right now focused on US customers. And then once you have that, we have that data. It's read-only, so we don't place trades on the customer's behalf. We only use that as information to personalize your experience. So our AI advice will, in seconds, be able to analyze your portfolio and already give recommendations on what you could be doing in terms of rebalancing, diversification, monitoring risk, or even suggesting like a few specific positions that you can start in your portfolio given your risk tolerance, right? And this is the kind of service that, usually if you have tried to sign up for a financial advisor, usually you have a first 30-minute onboarding call where you just like present yourselves, and then a next 30-minute call where, you connect your accounts and then they analyze with you together what's happening. It usually takes like, 1 week or more just to get the information that you could be getting like instantly, right? So we just try to redesign that experience from scratch. And right now it's available for everyone. You have a 1 week trial to get started, and after that it's a subscription base, but hopefully the value that you get out of our tool is much higher than the subscription that you pay for.
And one of the key things is that money is likely one of the most important things in people's lives, obviously outside family and health. How are you thinking about gaining people's trust? That wealth management service that was on the high end service, it has always been very relationally driven.
So I think we'll get customer trust if we're able to provide a service of extreme quality. So in that sense, I think serving direct to consumer is a true meritocracy of products, right? So we can only survive in the market and get customers trust if the advice that we give is bulletproof. So that's why from the very beginning, we started developing our own internal systems to make sure that the LLM responses that we give are not just, a copy and paste from ChatGPT. We try to minimize hallucinations as much as we can with the systems that we created. We have a multi-agent orchestration system that facts check everything that the LLM provides as an output, so that whenever we give an advice to the customer, it should be much more accurate and more tailored to the customer's information than a regular query that you could do on Claude or ChatGPT or other generic LLM providers. So we think that, over time, these decisions that we made in terms of engineering will compound. So as customers see that we're actually a much better, much more customized tool for their financial decisions, they'll eventually trust us more than the other horizontal LLMs or even their own human financial advisors. And to be honest, I think the bar is quite low, because a lot of people nowadays, they make their financial decisions based on Instagram influencers or asking their group of friends, which are, in many cases not well versed at all into this world, and they follow that advice, right? I think that's it's something that happens in every single market in the world. I'm from Brazil, and that's usually the most common way for people to make investment decisions. So if we're able to offer anything better than that, I think over time we'll be able to gain customers' trust quite.
And from what you shared, one of the key features of the platform today are those portfolio recommendations. Can you dive a layer deeper around like the difference on like any person going to Claude and, hey, these are my holdings. Can you make some recommendations? Like,
Yeah. So for everyone watching this, if you try to go to ChatGPT or Claude and ask, okay, give me recommendations on which stocks I could buy given this is my portfolio, the first line probably of the LLM response will be, I'm not a registered investment advisor. I cannot give you financial advice. But here are some considerations, right? So they're usually on the fence on, what they're telling users, right? And when we built Astor, we started building it last year. One of the main feature requests from customers was, okay, you guys are doing a good job in investment research, but I actually want actual advice from you guys, right? And then as founders, me and my co-founder Daniel, we realized we needed to be regulated to get that. So we applied for a license in the SEC to be a registered investment advisor. We got that license, and now we can actually offer tailored advice to you. So it's a combination of like, we build all the pipelines to get very high quality data sources from the market, plus the data pipelines to get your customer financial information. We mesh that into our own multi-agent system in order to provide great advice for people, and we can actually provide that advice because we are licensed by the SEC, right? So I think hopefully for everyone that tries this experience, it feels much more personalized and feels much closer to what a human advisor would say and not to what Claude or ChatGPT would say. So I think that's one of our biggest differentiators in the market, and it's something that a lot of people in Silicon Valley, they're saying the next big trend is to sell services, not software, right? And do like services as software. I think we're precisely positioned in this market for the financial advisory industry. It's a services business, and now with AI, I think we'll be able to offer that same level of service at margins of a software business. So I think we're very excited with how the industry is heading into that direction.
one of the great things about investing is that there are so many options available. As you think about specific stocks, ETFs, sectors, spaces, the universe is very large. How are you able to handle those very extremely deep agent searches in an efficient, optimal way at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of our secret sauce, I think. So we actually pay for high quality financial data from, companies and the market with some specific providers, and we also have our own tools that the agents call whenever they're doing a query, right? So we have a tool that we call for web search. We have a tool that we're developing inside for equity research. So even though we don't provide, a target price as equity research analysts do, we basically do a roundup of like what are analysts saying in the market, what's the consensus about this specific stock, what are the fundamentals, is does this stock have some place in this customer's portfolio given their risk profile or not. So I think a big engineering effort that we have is making sure that all these parts are connected.
And are you at some point opinionated yourself? So the other day, I developed a thesis around a specific startup that I thought was very bullish. Imagine you had that at times. Do you also encompass that within the advice that you give in there, or it's really more neutral, like lets the agents make the decisions?
Yeah. So as a founder, even when we started this business, I really wanted to understand the financial advisory industry from the inside. So I quickly realized I want to be as close to financial advisors as I could, right? So we not only interviewed a lot of them, but I took the Series 65, which is an exam for people to become financial advisors, right? So I was able to pass that exam, and with that, I was able to apply for a license with the SEC to represent the firm, right? For us to be an internet advisor. So I think after all these experiences, which was a months long process, I was able to understand, how do financial advisors really think and what truly matters for the end customer. And I was able to basically create a set of core principles that are applied as a system prompt into our product. So we did a lot of research along with some other teammates here about, okay, as a firm, if we are an investment advisory firm, what are the time-tested principles that we want to apply to people, right? And some examples are, we really believe in the diversification long-term. We really believe in being allocating your money in high-quality assets and holding them long-term instead of just doing day trading or just having speculative assets in your portfolio. We really believe in diversifying in ETFs across not only inside the US, but internationally as well. So all those principles are instilled into the system prompt, and the user will be able to understand what we're thinking as they interact with our product. So it's not just a blank context ChatGPT query that we do all the time. I think as we evolve as a firm, this will be even more important, right? I think we have to have an opinion, and we have to do the proper disclaimers to customers about what is our opinion.
And one of the key things of any AI application is their evals. Kind of
Yeah.
evals is really one of the long-term things that you can build. Like, how are you thinking about evals internally? Because especially as it relates to recommendations, like it can be like months to validate if that recommendation was actually good.
Yeah. We started using a third party evaluation system. To be honest, we didn't like it. So we started building our own as well. We have an engineer who's be allocating a couple of weeks to developing our internal evaluation system. And right now, I think, a lot of companies are scared to use AI in financial services because it can be considered a black box in many cases. But we're trying to um, transform this into something much more easier to understand, and that could be as transparent as possible, right? So in our evaluation system, we actually review every single day all of the advice that was given to customers, and then we build a few dimensions where we score on whether that advice was factually correct, whether it was suitable according to the customer's level of risk, and some other factors. Once any advice, even if it's one line of advice, if that score is very different from what we were expecting, then we have a flag on our Slack that it really is just a bot that tells us whenever something was completely off, and then we go review. And then in our own system, we can kind of tweak the instructions that we're giving to the LLM so that that doesn't happen again. So every single day, we have a system that self-optimizes. We take a look at as humans, we take a look at the advice that was given, we check what was wrong, and then we give the input as almost like data annotation to the LLM system so that this mistake doesn't happen again. And this is part of also a core part of what we're building because as regulated financial advisors, we have to make sure that the advice we give is of high quality.
No, you're like at the very end of the day, you're only as good as your inputs. And I know that you've been mentioning over the conversation about some of the data sources and the partners that you're using. Are you starting to see that with LLMs, you're able to even access like non-obvious data sources that before were not rarely or were like rarely used to make financial advisory, or most of it that is relying on kind of your traditional capital IQ and traditional finance providers?
Yeah, I think there's a world in which we can explore a lot of alternative data sources. To be honest, I think the main problem right now is not data availability, but it's just like data orchestration and organization. Even in our personal lives, even if you have like 3 or 4 different brokerage accounts or cash accounts, a lot of people don't have visibility on what's happening, right? What's the current amount of assets and liabilities that they have every single month. If they have if they're in a cash crunch, they don't know if they can make the payment next month. So I think the data is there and it's not even like that complex, but it's just a visibility and organizing that data that really matters for the end customer, right? And as your portfolio gets bigger and you start investing in different asset classes, that start becoming even more of a problem, right? And for power users who really want to have access to like the latest availability from companies in order to do their own equity research, like we can offer tools to help that, but our focus has been on, okay, what really matters to the end customer so that they can organize their financial lives and make better decisions.
And one of the other things that we were speaking the other day was that you said that a new voice feature that you released has been a big unlock, even bigger than you expected. Can you share more about like what that voice feature is and why do you think that users have responded to it so well?
Yeah, so voice is a very interesting frontier, I would say, in terms of UX for building AI products. On our batch in YC Summer 2025, voice agents were one of the clearest, most popular trends, and we're very bullish for voice in some cases. And it's quite interesting because if you go to talk to a financial advisor, or even you sign up for one of the digital financial advisory services that emerged in the past decade, voice is a very big part of the experience. They want you to take a call with an advisor so that you can tell them about your life, you can tell them about your goals. So we understood that if we wanted to create a financial advisory experience that mimics the real life advisory, we should have voice in some form or capacity just to test that hypothesis with customers, right? So we put a voice call on the onboarding right after you connect your account so that we can already start providing value to the customer. We can start giving them insights about past trades that they didn't even know or how their portfolio is allocated. And that experience is very engaging. We have a user, for instance, that he started the onboarding process. He jumped on the call and then he was prompted to explain a little bit more about his investment thesis and his goals. And then he stayed speaking for 6 full minutes without interruptions. He only spoke for 6 minutes about his life. And that was a very clear indication that when people are prompted to talk more about their lives, they feel just more engaged with the product, right? Almost as if we have like someone on the other side listening to you. That's why I'm also personally bullish in other categories of AI products like AI therapists, for instance, because if the voice experience is really well done, I think it can create unmatched engagement with the user.
And as it relates to votes, one of the things that I was thinking is when stocks are going up, everything's fine and you can leave it to yourself, but it's not always going to go up, and there are going to be moments where it goes down.
Yeah.
So curious how you're thinking about handling that for the customer, especially the ones that are on their early innings of their financial lives, starting to invest. And do you see voice playing a role in that front around like giving people ease as like they go through those?
Yeah, I think when you're building digital AI products, you have to strike a balance between bringing comfort and being reassuring, but also not being too proactive so that it becomes annoying, right? Right now, I think for the voice experience, we have that in the onboarding, and it's an option that the customer can have to start the voice call. And then whenever, they open the app, they can also jump in to a voice call. But we are not proactive in terms of like, hey, can we give you a call right now? Because for many customers, I think that could be a little intrusive, right? But we do see a future in which maybe, the market is tanking 3% in a single day, your portfolio is down like 5%, and you're kind of like panicking and you don't have anyone to talk to. Maybe there's a way to create a more proactive voice agent that analyzes the situation and kind of almost like tries to predict the emotions that are coming up with the end customer. And, appears in the UX as an option for the customer to just talk about something, right? And then I think we start being closer to the psychological aspect of what it means to invest. It's something that we have not tried yet, but I think it could be a very innovative part of the product if done well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And related to
Yep.
that point above around getting to know the user, one of the things that we also spoke that you're starting to go towards that direction is AI memory. From a technical standpoint, like what have you done so far in that?
Yeah, memory is a key component of any AI product nowadays, and for us, it's no different. You could even say that it's more important for us than regular utility productivity AI apps, for instance, because having financial memory of how your portfolio has evolved over time and how your preferences have evolved over time can really customize the experience in a very meaningful way, right? So for now, memory is a very complicated technical problem. We're not reinventing the. So there's a few like good providers out there that we use to do memory management, and it's already integrated into the product. So everything that you say to Astor, either via voice or chat, the trades that you make, the reasons why you do specific money movements. If you want to input that, then we can store that and further customize your experience. So I think it can be a really big differentiator, as we've all seen when ChatGPT launched memory. That was enough to like increase engagement and retention with the product because people wouldn't want to use other horizontal LLM providers if they were to start from scratch. And then Claude, a few weeks ago announced memory import, so you can import your memory from ChatGPT into Claude. So there's currently going an ongoing battle between like who has the most context and memory of the user. And for us, we want to be kind of the vertical LLM player for your financial life. Right now, people are not plugging their financial data on ChatGPT or Claude. These tools were not made for that. And I think it's going to happen at some point. I think in order to provide highly customized service in terms of your financial life, you need data. And we set up everything in place so that our data pipelines are very secure. We're pursuing a SOC 2 license for our product, which is something that usually enterprise products do. But us as a consumer company, we feel like it's very important that we also pursue that. So it could be like a differentiator for us as well. And hopefully, as we gain more trust from customers, we're going to start becoming that platform for their financial data.
And as you think about the landscape, like we've seen in other verticals, legal being maybe the most visible one, how being one of the early kind of not winners might be a correct word, but early players to move to an outsized position has like long term benefits. Seems like in wealth management there's still not like a clear number one or number two. Like having seen how other markets are developing, how are you personally seeing or thinking about how the competitive landscape will evolve and the competitive dynamics will be in the wealth management space?
I think so. Whenever people ask me about like, oh, who are your direct competitors, right? I think it's quite interesting that we're in a point in the industry where it's so early. All these other startups that are trying to do something similar, they're in a similar stage as ours. No one has gotten a huge amount of traction yet. And you have this situation where the incumbents who could also, start moving towards our space, I think they're moving a little bit more carefully with this because they know it's a highly regulated space, and usually they make money from financial products, right? But for instance, they're making money off not only the trades but credit card, savings account, the float, and all that. And for us, what we really want to be the best in giving financial advice to people, and it's fully AI based. So I think it's a risk that we're taking that we think is going to pay it off in the future. And I think all the other competitors, direct competitors, they're trying the same thing. And we think because of our engineering efforts, we can take a lead in this market. And then you have the other horizontal LLM providers that maybe they could start customizing a little bit more the product experience towards finance, but to the point that I mentioned before of like selling services and not software, I think we can be a fully AI native investment advisory firm. And I want you to start thinking more like that and less like a subscription software, because I think that's what's truly going to differentiate us.
And related to that vision and long term, like how do you personally envision the future of wealth management in general to be? Do you think like as we look forward in 5 years, it will be completely different version of what is today and anything people might be underestimating on what's about to happen in the space?
I think it's going to change so much because, if wealth management and white glove financial services have been reserved for the wealthy. And the way I see the market is we were able to democratize many aspects of financial services in the past few decades, right? So Robinhood, I think, did something with trading, and eliminated like brokerage firms, for instance, across the board who did not have like a digital product. So brokerage and getting access to assets has been democratized, right? The last frontier that was not democratized yet, which is the one that we're acting on, is everything that depends on skilled humans, right? So wealth managers, private bankers, equity research analysts, they're all skilled human beings, right? They studied and worked to get to where they are, and they use their intelligence and their capacity to build relationship with people to deliver a service, right? And I think LLMs are getting to the point where, at least in terms of intelligence and capability, they're getting closer to these humans, right? So now you have marginal cost of serving customers that is going to decrease dramatically in the next few years. And because of that, everyone who's in the financial advisory space will be able to serve much more customers than they could before AI, right? So that's precisely the wave that we wanna surf. I think everything in wealth management or private banking or white glove financial services that was heavily reliant on humans could be scaled with AI in the future. So I think it's net positive for the industry. In the future, maybe 10 years from now, everyone who starts earning money could have like a dedicated small family office that is very particular to that individual, knows all about their tax strategies, know everything they should do about their investments. And it's completely run by agents. So you bring scalability to this previously unscalable service. And I'm very excited for this trend.
And one of the exciting things is there's so much to build in your space, but at the same time, I'm curious how you manage focus and what you think is the best next thing to like work on. What framework do you use when there is like this shiny new thing coming up and new space, new idea, and knowing like what really matters at the end?
Yeah, I read this quote very recently that says, software is very different from any other industry in the world because software is infinitely malleable. If you go open a restaurant, for instance, you're kind of like confined to the physical space of that restaurant. Or if you're building a phone in hardware, you're confined to the technical specifications of that phone, and you can't build much more than that, right? But in software, it's infinitely malleable. It's infinitely expensive. So the easiest thing in software is to just start building and building new things, right? And I think that's a trap for many fintechs because they just want to start adding more features. They just want to like, okay, what if I start offering this asset for people to trade? What if I start tracking this, the portfolio from the customer in this way, or offer like, educational financial content in my platform. So it's like very easy to start stacking features and lose sense of what actually matters to the customer. And for us, I think we have very clear, like if you want to be a good investment advisor, the core product is the advice. So we just want to be the best in giving this advice. So that means being bulletproof in terms of mistakes. It means using full context of the customer's portfolio and delivering that in a language that feels friendly and trustworthy by the customer, right? So if we nail that, I think we have a winning product, and then we can start thinking about the other areas and streams of revenue for the company. But I think having focus on really nailing the experience and achieving product market fit with the financial advice is key for us right now.
And one of the things that we have not spoken is actually when we met, you were not a founder, you were actually a venture capital investor. Now that you're on the other side of the table, what do you think is the biggest misconception you had when you were an investor that you're now realizing now that you're a founder?
I think one thing is I thought as an investor that fundraising would be fun, that it would be fun just scheduling meetings with investors and talking about your company, but fundraising as a founder is not fun. I hate to break it to most people who want to become founders, but it's a long and arduous process. It takes work, and it's just, you kind of repeating your vision to different investors, and some investors will buy into that vision, right? And they are usually the ones who back you and have your and support you in the ways that you need. But a lot of investors won't really understand what you're doing, won't really care, or won't even do their homework of reading the investment memo that you send a few days before to prepare for the meeting, right? And so I think like as an ex VC, um, you know, I might even be in a position to give this advice to other VCs, and especially emerging managers. I think if you really just do the homework of understanding what the company is about and doing like very light research on the space, you're already ahead of so many investors, right? So I think this is one insight about fundraising that I really got when I switched to the other side of the table. And the second one is I think as an investor, you're in a position of great privilege to be able to understand different business models. And I had a lot of fun being a VC before, but being on the other side of the table and actually building something, I think it's one, much harder because you deal with uncertainties all the time. Your life's project is on the line every day and you think about all the thousand ways where it could go wrong. But I think precisely because it's so uncertain, it feels thrilling. It feels fun to be able to build something and try to create a vision of how you think the world should be and work towards that vision, right? So I personally am very grateful that I made the move, and for all the investors out there who would like to become founders, I think you should do it.
No, that's great. Yeah, definitely massive respect to you and all the founders out there. But to close by, would love to like the quick fire round, three quick questions, and you give me your reactions.
Awesome, let's do it.
So the first one I'm clarifying, given the space, is not financial advice, and I asked this question to several of the guests. But what's one public stock that you're bullish or a buyer, given the long term impact that you think that the AI will have on it?
I'm very big right now on infrastructure, AI stocks, and everything related to infrastructure. If I had to pick one, is ASML, largest European tech company right now. They provide the equipment that they basically sell to TSMC, so TSMC can produce chips, and chips are not going to go out of fashion. We just keep needing more and more chips in order to have computing power for all these AI models to run. And if we really believe that AI is taking over the services economy and not just the software economy, then we'll just need an infinite amount of equipment and, manpower to produce these chips. So, this is not financial advice, but I'm very bullish on ASML and TSMC for that case.
And opposite question, like what's one company that you're a short or not as bullish, also given the impact that AI will have on it?
That's tough. I Well, I usually don't like publicly saying that I short stocks. I actually don't short stocks at all as a part of my investment strategy, but I would be bearish on pure software stocks like Adobe, for instance, that are poised to be disrupted by, the foundational model labs because, in a world where AI and Claude can really edit videos, create images, create videos with prompts. I think the winning interface for doing all that will not be a piece of software with a UI. It's going to be essentially just natural language, right? You're going to talk to your computer and iterate over that. And Adobe has spent, all their decades of experience building complex graphical user interfaces to be used for arts essentially, and maybe that industry will be transformed very heavily in the next few years.
And to close by, the question that I love asking, like I find that everyone is optimizing for something in life. What do you say that thing is for you?
So my personal philosophy is we only have one life. We only have one shot in doing the things that we love. And maybe contrary to what many people think, I think life is actually very long. A lot of people say life is short and you have to just carpe diem, enjoy the moment. I think life is long and there's a lot of time to different projects, pursue different dreams as well and different passions. And I realized that in every life stage that I had, I think I was, very different from before. I had like new thoughts coming in. I'm very open-minded. I really like living new experiences. And I think I'm constantly evolving as a human being. What I'm optimizing for is to live a very rich, long life so that I can just expose myself to different things, learn and evolve as a human being. And I think there's really time for that. I think, especially as in our generation, maybe we'll live, to more than 100 years. I think there's a lot of time to put your mind and soul into different projects and leave your mark in the world.
No, and this is not paid promotion at all, but to that point around pursuing your passions, highly recommend to the audience the new book of Bill Gurley, which speaks a lot about this and really find
Awesome.
it a book that everyone should be reading. With that, Bruno, I really enjoyed having you. I invite everyone to try Astor. You can find it on the App Store. I'm a personal paid user and been enjoying it a lot. But Bruno, thank you so much. It's been great having you here.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Your friendship and support means a lot to me. And see you next time.